I don't know what I want to do with my life, so I keep imagining different scenarios, right? So right now I'm imagining public speaking. I don't know how exactly that becomes a job, but talking to people in large groups is something that would feel very meaningful, telling people things, talking about life and the world. Um, I wouldn't want to be one of these like David Goggins, like yelling at people to inspire them, but I don't know what I would want to do, but I like talking to people and hearing like the internet sucks. People feel like they have this protection, this wall of protection over their ideas where they don't have to defend them. They don't feel like their ideas have to be even remotely accurate. But when I talk to people in the real world, this doesn't happen. Like talk to people in real life and they're not going to hide behind their little wall of whatever. Like I don't know how public speaking becomes a career, but I know plenty of public speakers who have great careers. And it's so hard for me to identify what exactly about public speaking I'm good at. I think I'm just very good at explaining my thought processes and why I think in certain ways. I've always been very I've always been very emotionally intelligent in the sense that I can understand other people, like even like small children when, small children maybe around like age 2 or 3, they speak some English, they know some words, but it's not perfect and sometimes you can't understand what they're saying at all, but I've always been able to with kids if I've been paying attention to them just with context and listening to them I can know what they're trying to say, know what they're talking about. And I feel like this applies too with real people. Now that I've been trying to speak more efficiently with people, you can understand so much about people by the way they use their words, the way they talk about things. You can see how somebody values something by the way they talk about it. And it's really cool how much of an insight you can get into someone's mind just by carefully listening to the words that they use. Like it's hard to think of an example, but when someone's at the gym and they're like, "Man, this shit is awful. This is the worst. I hate the gym," something like that. You can probably say this person's not like they're not going to be in the gym as consistently as someone who goes to the gym every day and looks like they're fine. Looks like they're just either they look neutral or they look like they're having a good time. And there's a lot of things you can read about people just by looking. You don't have to ask them their opinion, and I don't believe people's opinions when they tell them to me, Like I know that everything people say you have to take with a grain of salt. Often people don't argue to understand. They argue to be right, which is a damn shame because so often I have to try and get around this with people. Like something I don't understand. So my dad is my dad's got some uh my dad's like pretty Republican, right? And I don't know that he probably believes in global warming, right? He doesn't think it's not happening, but he thinks that it's not as bad as they say. They're just crying about it. And, I understand that point of view. Social media does that. It makes problems seem bigger than they are. However, I look at the world from my point of view, not even from social media, and I see trash everywhere. I go on walks every day with a dog. I walk a dog not every day, most days, 5 days a week on average, right? And I see garbage everywhere. I see trash everywhere. In certain spots, you see tons of trash, and certain stretches of sidewalk, there's more trash, there's less trash. And this is in an incredibly good neighborhood. Like, this is in a very good place that has trash. Like, I'm talking about near a park that has, like, multiple trash cans, and I still see trash everywhere. Like, at what point do we accept that this is unsustainable? I mean, if we had a house, right? If let's say my family's living in a house, four of us, and we just start littering, we stop throwing things away, we just start throwing things on the ground. Sure, we're gonna survive just fine for who knows how long, maybe years we can last, but eventually that shit is going to negatively affect us. There is no way around that. We're gonna either have to empty out all the trash from our house, or we're going to have to go around it and make use of it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I see this as the world. Like, we cannot just dump shit into our house forever. Like, the world is our house. This is our only house we have, and we just dump shit into it all day long. And if you think that's sustainable, I mean, then you should just start throwing all your trash away on the ground in your house, because it's not gonna have any negative effects, right? It's just gonna sit there and whatever. I mean, sure, if you live somewhere where your trash goes far away, then it's easy to ignore, but I mean, geez, I cannot imagine that our materialist, consumptive culture is not going to have drastic negative consequences. I mean, you know how all the TV shows have us like living in like domes in 100 years or so, where like we can't go outside, or there's like nuclear fallout. I seriously can't see how that doesn't happen. Like, the way everyone in the world is just consuming and consuming, how are we not just going to consume everything and then end up fighting over resources because we've overly consumed our resources? It's but also it could be true that people are just over-exaggerating the stuff, but over-exaggerating the negative effects of global warming. But I mean, if you look up like ocean stretches full of trash, if you look up like the dirtiest places in the world, like it's just, oh my God, it's awful. I mean, I haven't seen those places in person, so I don't even know, but just the videos and pictures, it's like, oh my God, that's like probably rivers with miles and miles of trash and plastic and bullshit, man. Let's say this doesn't even negatively affect humans, right? Let's say we can just avoid all the plastics. All this garbage that's leaching into our ecosystems and biological life cannot be good for the world as an ecosystem. Like, as a food web, we are now going to be leaching plastics into like every single organism. Like, water already does have plastics, microplastics, animals have plastics, people have microplastics, and we've become so advanced that society is changing faster than we can possibly know the effects of it, right? Like, all these phones we put in our pockets and our hands all day, 24/7, likely causing all the anxiety and depression in so many people, but there's no way to know because it hasn't been long enough. We can't study them extensively. We can't study them over time. This brings me back to something I was thinking about yesterday, is if you could get rid of every industry that doesn't improve the lives of people, then the world would just become so much more efficient, and the positive effects would ripple to every single person on the planet. I truly believe that. Like, the two worst that I can think of right now are the health insurance industry and not necessarily the real estate industry. Maybe it would technically be the commercial real estate industry, but what I'm talking about is when people buy up 20 homes or apartment buildings and then just rent them back at higher prices. To me, this is like going to the only grocery store in the city, buying up all the milk, and then trying to sell it for like twice as much as you bought it for. Those people, and I'm not saying those people, I'm not trying to hate on those people, but it's legal what they're doing, and they're extracting value, and they've been, that's smart to do in our current society. You're just trying to make money, and I understand that, but if we could just ban activities that don't add value to society and only extract value, then those people would not have jobs, and now they would have to go get jobs that actually help people and, improve the lives of other people instead of improving their own lives at the cost of other people. And I think the health insurance industry is incredibly similar to that, where they're just extracting value from people. They're adding middlemen and closed doors, so you can't really know the prices of anything, and it's sad. It is sad, but I don't really know what else. Right now, in my mind, the biggest problems are the healthcare industry and commercial real estate. I really don't even know what that industry would be called. You know, I don't have a problem with people buying like a couple homes when they use them, maybe Airbnb-ing it out the rest of the year, whatever. But when these people, I mean, if a person owns like 50 apartment buildings, I mean, sure, you could say they're adding value to society by checking our utilities or whatever, but come on. Like, the apartment building should have to do that, not someone who's just, I don't know. There definitely becomes a point where billion-dollar corporations, or maybe even hundreds of corporations with hundreds of billions in net worth, are buying up real estate. It's like an investment to them. They're buying up all these houses and real estate. Well, how? Well, we agree that shelter is a need, right? We all agree that shelter is a need, like food. You need shelter. I guess it's not as bad as food, right? You can live on the streets and you'll live longer than someone who doesn't have food. But let's just say, for the art of this comparison, food and shelter are both needs equal in the eyes of God, whatever. I don't know why I said that, but equal in the eyes of God. Okay, so what is the difference between someone going to the grocery store, buying up all the milk, right? All the milk and eggs, let's say. All the eggs and milk, they buy all them up, and then they say, "All right, well, I'll sell this back to you guys for this price," which is higher because I did the work. I bought the goods and I gathered them. Well, that person, the easiest way for me to say and to identify that this isn't adding value to society is that nothing is being created whatsoever. There's no like programming code. There's no real estate being created. There's no jobs being created. There's no value being created. I mean, I can't understand. And I feel like people might hear this and think like, oh, like maybe like financial managers, they don't add value to society. I disagree. I think financial managers are very important to society because everyone needs money. Everyone should have someone who understands money working for them. Or at least not everyone, A lot of people should have someone who understands money working for them, putting their money in indexes and telling them how to budget, stuff like that. But there are definitely people there. If you disagree with this statement, I don't really know what to tell you, but there are definitely people in the world who don't try to improve others' lives. They try to extract value from other people's lives. And that's life. That I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to say these people should go to prison. These people should not go to prison. They're not breaking the law. They're just doing what they've been taught. I don't blame them, but if we could get rid of all this just lack of value creation, like how do we get people who just extract value to start adding value? I mean, I don't even know that every person has the ability to add value to the world, Like, what? Creating jobs isn't super easy, but, I mean, I truly think if we got rid of all the people who extract value, then everything would become cheaper. Like, money would feel so much more valuable, and people would have more money. People would not be financially struggling like they are today. I truly believe that. I think a huge problem with the housing bubble right now, or if you want to call it a bubble, I see it as a bubble, with hugely inflated housing prices, right? It's because supply is low and demand is high because people have bought up all the houses and they're not doing anything with them, or they're renting them, or they're just listing them on the market trying to make money. And when people aren't adding value to other lives, they're just extracting it. I mean, if you're making money without adding value to other people's lives, then you are extracting value. You are like, I don't know about scamming people, but like, think about this. If these landlords were doing this to their family members, how much would their family members like them? Imagine if you had a close family member who was like, yeah, I bought this apartment building for 50 grand, and now you're just going to pay all the money. You're just going to pay all my monthly expenses. So basically it was free. I just had to pay the down payment, and now you pay for the rest. The person would be like, are you living in this building? And they'd be like, no, it's just for you. So are you selling me it, or am I just like, I don't know if that makes sense, but if we treated everyone like family, like, everyone would just have an infinitely better life. And I know that's really difficult and idealistic and impossible to attain. Like, we're never going to get everyone to treat everyone like family. It's just not going to happen. But at least in people's careers, can we just treat other people like human beings and not extract their hard-earned money from them? Can we instead add value to them so that they want to give us their money, not feel like they're forced to give us their money? And it kind of reminds me of the idea that the free market, open market is always the best thing. Like, for the healthcare insurance industry, you might think like, oh, without the healthcare insurance industry, like, health would be so expensive. Well, I disagree. I think if hospital prices and all medical related prices were common knowledge and competitive across the industry, then it would be incredibly cheaper, and um, the healthcare insurance industry would just be useless. I'm sorry, I might have misspoke a couple times. Healthcare industry is hugely important. The healthcare insurance industry is the bigger problem. And the healthcare industry in general might have problems too. Treating symptoms instead of the underlying problem, and extracting. I'm sure the pharmaceutical industry extracts value when it can as well, but just if we can move towards adding value instead of extracting value in everyone's professions, everyone would have an infinitely better life. Think about it like this. If you have a colony of ants, right? Ants are incredibly powerful when they work as a group, right? The ant colony. When the ant colony all works together, they can lift something that's 10 times their collective body weight or something, maybe even greater. I think ants can lift like hundreds of times their body weight, actually. But anyway, one ant is useless by itself. One ant, if it tries to survive on its own, it's going to have a very difficult life. It's going to feel alone, shitty. It's going to feel weak. But now, if we have a colony of people where everyone is working towards similar goals, or at least just working towards making things easier for everyone, kind of like an ant colony, then think of how strong as a species we could be. Like, man, like, think about the things we could do if we actually just, if we could just be cohesive and incredible teammates and cooperative like ants, like a perfect group of animals that just act as like one unit. I mean, humans are a little smarter than ants and other things, so that's more difficult, but just can we move towards that? Obviously, we're not going to be a perfect ant colony, but can we move towards most people adding value instead of extracting value? I think the positive effects would be incredible.